I am Conrad Wetzel, and sitting down with us today is Sam Yergler. Sam lives here in Champaign, and he and his wife, they came here from California how long ago?
I guess it was 2 years in July, at the beginning of July.
Mm-hmm. What brought you to Champaign to live?
Well, we met in LA at the Catholic Worker, where we helped run a soup kitchen, and we came back to Illinois because we were basically out of money, and I got my old job back. I grew up around here, and so we have been working for over these past 2 years.
Very good. And I got to know Sam through the Mennonite Church, where he and his wife attend. And we have a number of things we want to talk about. First of all, you mentioned the Catholic Worker. Say something about what the Catholic Worker movement is, the Catholic Worker House here in Champaign, how you came to be involved in it, and what are some of the main things that they are concerned about.
Yeah. Well, the Catholic Worker was started in 1933 in New York by a radical Catholic lay woman named Dorothy Day. She was an anarchist, and all of her friends thought she was crazy to convert to Catholicism. But she did, and she began to realize that the Catholic Church doesn't do enough for the poor and the destitute of our society. And so the idea behind the Catholic Worker is you live in simplicity and sometimes in voluntary poverty to stand in solidarity with the poor. You feed the poor, you live with them, and that movement started then, and it's still going strong, even though Dorothy died in 1980.
And there are Catholic worker houses all across the country, aren't there?
There's Catholic workers in most major cities. Of course, I first found the Catholic Worker in LA. There's one here in Champaign. And of course, there's the Mother House, as they call it in New York, where it all started.
Up on the Hudson River.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yes.
I have not been there.
Martine and I visited that farm.
Oh, you did?
Yes, many years ago. And quite a few years ago, I met Dorothy Day.
Oh, you did?
So I had the privilege of getting acquainted with her.
Well, you're very lucky. I've never met her.
Yes. Well, she certainly was someone who intended to make a difference.
Uh-huh.
That was her purpose in life. She bore witness, and she said the person has to be willing to live your faith. You can't just talk about it.
Right.
And you have to be willing to even lay down your life for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, she was certainly a great model. And have you lived at the Catholic Worker House here in town?
No, I haven't. My main experience with the Catholic Worker is in LA, and we like I said, we ran a soup kitchen. We lived in an old Victorian house that was built in 1889 or something like that. It was 15 bedrooms, and every bedroom was full of people, and we all lived together, and we were pacifists, so we do a lot of actions against in favor of peace and against war, and that's kind of what we did in LA, and I kind of fell in love with that lifestyle, and I hope to continue it.
Mm-hmm. Good. Now, when you moved here, how did you get involved with the Mennonite Church?
Well, Allison and I, my wife, we were looking for something. Since we didn't live at the Catholic Worker anymore, we had our own apartment here in Champaign. We needed something that was to fulfill our the religious side of who we are, and so we went to the Mennonite Church and checked it out. Of course, they're also pacifists, and we liked that, and we continued to go.
And we're certainly glad to have you there.
Yeah.
Now, you were involved in May in the NATO protest, were you not, in Chicago?
Yeah.
Tell us what that was. Tell us, first of all, what NATO is, what they were doing in Chicago, and what you are doing in Chicago.
Well, NATO is, well, it stands for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Is that right? Anyway, NATO is an alliance of 28 countries, and they are basically the military part of those countries, and they use their military force to get done whatever they need or see fit that needs to be done. They've been in, of course, the most recent was in Libya, and many thousands of civilians have been killed from NATO fire over the years, and that's something that we wanted to bring attention to. NATO was holding their summit in Chicago in May, and we all thought it would be a good idea to stage a counter summit, is what they were calling it. And so the Catholic workers were, of course, there, and we had our annual Faith and Resistance retreat, where we come together as Catholic workers to celebrate who we are and to have fellowship, and then, of course, at the end we have an action. This action was at Obama's campaign headquarters.
Okay.
At the Prudential Building, and we our motto was that NATO feeds war and communities feed people, and we wanted to have a meal with the campaign people and talk about why are we in Afghanistan, why do we support NATO, why are we doing all these senseless killings around the world, and so we had a dinner table. It was made of cardboard, and it had plates stapled to the top of it, and it had a basket of food, and we took it to the campaign headquarters, and we sang and danced outside, and we chanted, and we offered food to passersby, people on their way to work and whatnot, and the building security was perfectly fine with having us do that out on the sidewalk, and but then we decided to bring the celebration indoors, and we moved probably over 100 people, all of us that were there. We all moved into the building through well, I guess it was an emergency door that led to the lobby. And the security guards didn't really like that. They tried to stop us, but were unsuccessful. With 100 people all pouring in one entrance, it's hard to contain that. And we sang songs in the lobby, and we danced, and several of us made it up to the second floor where there was a balcony and also a bunch of elevators. And we tried to deliver our message to the 30th floor is what we thought it was. I don't know if that was actually correct. I don't think any of us knew for sure. But we once we got in the elevators, the building security had shut down the elevators, so we couldn't move. So we went back out onto the balcony, and we read a statement, a Catholic worker statement against NATO. And by then the police had shown up, and they asked us individually if we would leave the building, and I told them that I would not leave the building until we met with somebody. And of course they handcuffed me and put me in a police van and took me to the station, and all the photos and fingerprints and whatnot, and put me in a cell by myself, which was quite lonely for approximately 10 to 12 hours. I was then released on my own recognizance, and I had a court date, and so that was my experience at the NATO protests.
What happened when you appeared in court?
Well, my court date was the next month, May 5th, June 5th, and went to court and met the lawyer who was part of the National Lawyers Guild, and she talked with the judge, and the normal exchange between lawyers and judges. I don't really know how that works, but it does. And I was sentenced to not have any contact with the Prudential Building, which is where it was at, and I had a year of court supervision, so I can't be arrested in the next year, or else I guess the consequences are worse.
Yeah, that's true.
But and then I was ordered to pay $450 in fines.
Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of people have been in jail, many for very bad reasons, but some people for good and honorable reasons. Do you remember the story of Henry David Thoreau? He went to jail because he wouldn't pay his taxes for the war with Mexico. And Ralph Waldo Emerson was walking by, his friend. He saw him in there and said, "What are you doing in there?" And Henry David Thoreau's response was, "The question is, what are you doing out there?"
Yeah. I've heard a similar quote from a nun who has been arrested many times against nuclear weapons, and someone asked her, "Well, how many times have you been arrested?" And she said, "Well, not enough."
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, and there was television footage of your arrest.
Yeah, was there? I have not seen any yet.
Yeah. Now, you also have been active in the School of the Americas. First of all, tell us what the School of Americas is, and then tell us about your being there.
Well, School of the Americas, I would consider myself to be a supporter of the School of the Americas Watch, because the School of the Americas is a school in Georgia at Fort Benning where U.S. tax dollars go to bring basically insurgents from or military people from Central and South America. They bring them to Georgia, and they teach them torture techniques, counterinsurgency stuff, and a lot of really brutal tactics for torture and things like that. And of course, School of the Americas graduates have gone on to commit terrible atrocities, killing, or I should say assassinating Oscar Romero, the Archbishop down there. He was assassinated by a School of the Americas graduate. Numerous drug lords and drug cartels have been part of the School of the Americas, and we pay to teach these people how to kill and maim their own people. And so we go down to Fort Benning every November. It's the anniversary of a quite gruesome murder that was perpetrated upon several nuns, their housekeepers, and people like that who were doing missions work down there. And so every November they go have a huge rally at the gates of Fort Benning. They read all the names of people that have been killed by SOA graduates. And the list goes, they read names for hours, and I don't even think that they get to all of them. But there's been a lot of people that have had their lives taken by SOA graduates, and so that's why we go down to Fort Benning.
And a lot of people do that.
And a lot of people commit acts of civil resistance there too. They will climb the fence and try to bring their message to the soldiers. And the local judge there in Columbus, Georgia, he's quite brutal on SOA offenders. I don't know how you say it. People that are arrested at SOA Watch. And oftentimes for climbing a fence, people will get 6 months or something like that. but just outrageous sentences for very small crimes when there's a lot of people that commit atrocities that are not held accountable.
Yeah. You mentioned the name of David Omundi. Who is that, and why did you mention him?
Oh, David Omundi is a good friend of mine. I met him at the Catholic Worker in L.A. And him, the first year that we went to the SOA Watch protest in Georgia, I went with David, and it was our first experience of that, and it was a very powerful experience for both of us. And I think more so for David, because the next year, David decided that he was going to be one of the people that climbed the fence to bring his message to the soldiers. And so he climbed the next year we went to SOA, we met him there, and he was blessed by a priest that we know, and he took his Bible with him, and he climbed over a fence that had razor wire on the top and cut his arms pretty good, and jumped down on the other side, and there were the officers ready to arrest him, and then he was arrested, and then he was not released until 6 months later, when after his court date had passed, and then 6 months sentence was what he got for that. He, I wasn't there, but I was told that when he was in the courtroom, he had a public defender, and the public defender said to the judge something like, Mr. Omundi had no intention of climbing the fence when he arrived in Georgia. And David interrupted him, and he said, Your Honor, actually, I had every intention of climbing that fence when I came to Georgia.
Now, he was from where?
He's from, he was born in Kenya, in Nicaragua, Kenya. His father is a native person there, and his mother was a white woman from Ohio.
And he has so he had a lot of first-hand observations of things that he knew were wrong.
Oh yeah, and he
atrocities.
He grew up in the Mennonite Church, and the Mennonite faith, and so he realized that what these things that were happening were terrible things, and he had to stand up to them.
The way in which people treat each other tells a lot about what they believe about what's right and what's wrong. And there are people who think that it's wrong to harm and to kill other people. And sometimes they're very misunderstood, and many of them end up in jail for various reasons. But they bear a witness, and that's an important witness. Now, what are your future plans? You're working here in town. Do you plan to continue? You and your wife plan to continue living here in Champaign-Urbana?
We actually are trying to figure out a place where we want to live, a city, not only a city, but also a community of people. We want to travel around and look for preferably a Catholic worker community that will fit us, and we want to live there indefinitely. And so we are planning to travel across the country, visiting Catholic worker houses, and we actually just bought an RV to do that. We bought one last night, actually, and so we're pretty excited about that. We're going to be living in the RV eventually, and traveling around in it, and meeting people. And
when do you plan to begin that journey?
Not sure yet.
Yes.
Our lease isn't up until January, so at least after that.
Yes. Okay.
We want to. We have a lot of work we want to do to the RV also.
Sure. And getting used to driving it, and living and handling it.
Yeah.
So it's good you have some time to do
Yeah,
that.
yeah. We'd like to convert it to run on vegetable oil, which is something you can do with diesel engines.
I've heard about that.
Yeah, you can. All you need to do is put in an extra tank and a filter that filters all those French fries out, and you can pump out grease with the restaurant owner's knowledge, of course, and asked them, you know, you have all this old grease that you're not using. Would you like us to take it off your hands for you? And usually they're happy to have you pump it out.
So you're recycling the grease for a worthy cause.
Yeah. It burns a little bit cleaner than diesel, and it's a little more renewable.
What are some other things that you see in your future? Now that you're married, do you think of having children? Do you want to wait a while to do this other kind of journeying around? Or?
I don't know. We don't know if we would want, if children are in our future. We definitely want to find a community and live in simplicity with other people, like-minded people, and so we're very excited to do that sort of thing. And you know, the Catholic Worker is a very welcoming community, and we're preparing to go to a retreat this fall in Iowa. They have the Sugar Creek retreat, which is where it's kind of like a family reunion of Catholic workers coming together and talking about their communities, getting reacquainted with each other, and so that's something that we try to go to, and so the Catholic Worker is in my future, and so that's where we're planning to go.
I attended a retreat there at the center one year.
Oh, you did? Mm-hmm. Yes.
I used to know some people.
Well, people from
the Catholic Worker Movement.
And from Reba Place. You were active in Reba
Chicago.
Place.
Yes. So you've certainly done a lot of interesting things at your young age, and you have quite a few years ahead of you to continue exploring ways to bear your witness for what you believe in and to stand up for what you believe is right. Well, Sam, I certainly want to thank you for being with us today. I think the people who watch this program will be quite interested in what you have to say. So thank you very much for coming.
Yes, thank you, Conrad.
Wish you the very best in your future.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.